G'day guys, Toodles20 here and welcome back to Springwood. In today's episode, we are going to head back to a neighbourhood that I built about 8 months ago. One of the first neighbourhoods that I actually built in the city. So as you can imagine, it is quite outdated and in dire need of updating and repairs. I originally intended just to fix it up a bit, but when I started replacing some bits and pieces, I realized that the entire neighborhood needed to be done. So that's what we'll be doing today. The reason why I've chosen to go back to this neighborhood is I was actually really excited to build it in the first place, and now that there's a whole bunch of new assets and mods, and just my skill level I think is a lot better than it was 8 months ago. I'm actually really excited to go back there and implement all those new things into that area. So without further ado, let's have a little look at what the neighborhood looked like first, and then we'll get into the build. So here's the old girl, my first neighborhood that I built in this city. We are going to be focusing on this side of the track and this side of the canal. Down here is the main sort of area, like main commercial area. So this train station was really hard to work with, just with that being on that angle. So I think I'm going to follow this road here, this main road here. That way I can kind of work with this space a lot easier, because as you can see, I had to find some particular buildings that would actually fit here. I've unsubscribed from a lot of props, and there were a couple of trees that used to sit here, but they no longer exist in the city. This part of the boardwalk here was really hard to work with, and so as you can see, I've just kind of like left some gaps and got this building here which fitted in pretty nicely, but now I think I can work with it a lot better. And there's a couple little areas I want to keep. Like, I love this little car park here, and of course this theme park's going to stay, but there's just some things that I really need to fix up and touch up on, and I think you guys would appreciate me doing that in the live place, so I'll make sure I do that. And of course, this side of this side of the road, I'm actually going to keep relatively the same, because I think it's quite good. So anyway, let's get started. So I'm starting off with the train station, and the reason why I'm starting off with the train station, I feel like real cities and real neighborhoods expand from the center of town. So as you can imagine, there's all these neighborhoods all sort of spread out all over the place, and then as they expand and grow, all the houses and all the suburbs kind of come connect that way. I find that if I start off with the main center of town, or the center of a neighborhood, then it feels like I can create a lot more realism, because I just find that it just flows a lot better. So I always generally start with the center of a place, rather than kind of just expanding from, I guess, the downtown area or something like that. Now, I probably haven't even said this yet, but this whole area is actually very heavily inspired from Coney Island. I really love this sort of area. It was an area that I was really excited to build 8 months ago when I first began this city. And as you can see in this area, we have this theme park as kind of like this main attraction, main focus for this area. Even the houses and maybe not the houses, but the commercial areas are even kind of reminiscent of that theme park, of that Luna Park. And so I'm going to be using that as a main focus. And from there, I'm going to have this kind of rundown shop commercial area. I want it to kind of look like it was in a heyday, maybe in its 20s, but these days probably not too crash hot. So that's why I'm sort of starting off as well with this commercial area, as I feel like it's going to be the most important part of the actual neighborhood. So lots of detail in this sort of area, but kind of not so much around the residential spots. Now, just here I've plopped down a whole bunch of different buildings as I've scrolled through all my assets, and I've just plopped them down in the corner just to kind of get a bit of an idea of the buildings that I want to use in this area. again, I'm going for that quite low, so not a very high skyline in this area. I want that buildings to look quite old and a little bit kind of like an amusement park, even if that's so like maybe they're themed a little bit or something like that. I'm not really sure the sort of vibe you get from a theme park, but I don't know. I find this Gibson building kind of is a bit more, has got quite a lot more character than a lot of the other buildings. So it fitted in really nicely there. Sorry, my LUT's just changed. I'm not really sure why I've changed it there, but I do go back to the original one. But yeah, just like clipping some of these buildings together, just to make them a little bit more unique. And also I find that a lot of the commercial buildings to not have much space behind them. Whereas in reality, buildings at the back usually have some sort of residential area or like a loft, or it might have some sort of office or something. So really just playing with this sort of area. I'm also going to be trying to experiment with placing down lots of these abandoned lots. I guess there were once houses here or shops, and then as the area is no longer, I don't know, maybe doesn't have as many tourists coming anymore, they're just not really used. So lots of abandonment, looks like lots of abandonment. So I'm placing down a lot of vanilla buildings that I've recoed, and because I find like a lot of them are actually really cool and, you know, got a lot of character to them. Just here I'm experimenting with that vacant lot, trying to figure out what maybe used to be here, and again, just trying to figure out the back lots for these shops, because that way I can create a lot more character with these shops, and I feel like there's a lot more realism when you make these shop fronts have a lot of backing behind them. I find a lot of offices make really good backs for shops. There's a one in particular I think I'll use quite shortly. I'm also plopping down a lot of, that's the one I'm talking about. I'm also plopping down a lot of, what am I looking for? Lots of hotels and motels. So there's one right there. Going with that vibe of, was once, or maybe even still a little bit of a tourist attraction. I want them to look quite old. So these hotels look really old and really run down. So popping down lots of different hotels and motels. I guess from lots of tourists who come and stay for, you know, a night or so, visiting the boardwalk and visiting the beach, even though it's just a bit of a mess these days. I feel like this lot's quite cool. I always kind of forget to plop down these garages, but whenever I do, they create such good atmosphere, I find. So, yeah, but I always forget to stick them down, but I think that looks really cool. So just here, I'm kind of playing with a bit of the the waterfront there. I feel like it's quite an important area in this neighborhood and even in the city. And really, the one that I had before just wasn't that special. So I've just sort of started something down there, and I've moved on to another area because I kind of got to get a bit of an idea. And I've just started the game again, so I've unpaused it because I needed these buildings to sort of kind of start popping up. Sometimes I feel like I need to get a bit of a sense of what the neighborhood's going to look like before I put down some bigger buildings. In this case, to kind of plan for the waterfront or putting down some of the government buildings that are quite common in Coney Island. So I put down these houses and got them spawning just so I can get a bit of a vibe of what it's going to look like. This is, I guess, a little bit of a different style to a lot of the other areas in my city. This is kind of like it's a really strange area, and we've got these photos up here where they've got these, I don't know, it's like strange backlots. I can't really describe what they look like, but I've just kind of got a mix of New York residential areas and some vanilla buildings and just some really skinny lots here, and I find that kind of creates that sort of a look. More so, I've also deleted some areas and plopped down some dirt just to make it look like they're vacant lots now, and maybe the houses have burnt down or been demolished and abandoned over time. If you haven't watched some of the other episodes that I've been posting, definitely go and do that. But I speak about how I've put down a certain type of palm tree just because I feel like that's something that's common in my city, like a bit of a icon. So in every area I kind of put down this palm tree to kind of get that atmosphere of this city everywhere you go, like no matter what angle you look at. So just here I'm putting down these planters. I've chosen these planters in the city. I've probably got about 3 different types of planters, and where it's on the workshop there's so many great ones, but I've only chosen a couple because again they take up space in your asset collection, which I'm always striving to minimize. So yeah, just got this one to put down. I find that it really spruces up the side of the roads. And again, I'm putting down this fence, and I actually got this idea from something that popped up on the workshop. Somebody uploaded this really great road barrier, and I really wanted it, but it came with quite a lot of different, like there was quite a lot of props that came with it. It was like a pack, and I didn't end up getting it because I figured I could actually just use one of the fences that I've actually already got in my collection. So rather than having to download it just for that one use, I can actually, you know, just use something that I already have. I might do this time as well to say, if you're not following me on Instagram or on Twitter, definitely go and check out my social media platforms. I do quite a lot of teasers on there. Definitely the best place to interact with me, and I do try to respond to everybody who comments and you know, asks a question or something like that. And I think that Twitter and Instagram is probably the best spot for that. I'll also be trying to upload more pictures, and like definitely on Instagram. And Twitter, I'm really kind of getting my bearings around. It's my first time on it. I've only been on it for about 3 weeks or so. So definitely go and check me out on there. Yeah, I'm mostly posting kind of teasers about what's coming up in the next couple of episodes or during the week. And I am trying to stick to a bit of a schedule, but like just with work and life, I won't be that strict with uploading videos. I just don't really have the time. But we'll be trying to go for at least once a week or once every fortnight. But I would like to upload once a week. Here I go, start going decal crazy, because I find that really adds to the build. And definitely there's these water patches. I mean, like a lot of videos that I see people post with builds, and they don't really use it. So I definitely recommend using those puddles. I think they add a lot to it, especially in these rundown areas. When you tilt the camera on an angle, it's really interesting, like the sort of reflection you get on it. I don't know how asset creators do it, but they're absolute champs. This big decal is such a great one. I'm not really sure what it's called, but I plop it down everywhere. I mean, if you look at above, and I've said this before, if you look from above, like concrete is dirty and it's rough and it's all different colors and different shades of grey. So don't just, you know, plop down a car park and put a couple of cracks on it, because I find that as soon as you use lots of these decals, then it just really comes out. The realism really comes out, I should say. Again, putting down another motel, trying to keep it quite close to the actual theme park as well. Actually really excited to be doing this area again. It was an area that I was really excited about, like, 8 months ago, and I feel that like it's really helped. It's really created a great atmosphere for the entire city. Out of everything that I'm going to create in this city, this area is probably one of the most iconic areas that I will create. So really keen to do it, and also really keen to show you what we get up to in the live play when I start improving and fixing up the actual amusement park. So just trying to make this area quite unique. We've got this, I like this crack down there. You know, like that's, I can't really help that, but I also really like it. I think it adds a lot to it. But I have tried to cover it up a bit because, yeah. This area I'm just sort of playing with, like these corners are really hard to work with. And in my last episode I talk about this triangle that I make with the roads and how hard it is to slot some sort of building and you have to kind of make it unique. So I'm trying to make this area a little bit unique and, you know, just sort of clipping in these buildings. And man, that mover tool is just such a helpful thing. I don't like, you just would not be able to create the things that I do without those sort of tools. So thank you whoever made it. I forget your name. I probably own too many fences in my asset collection, but like it's just I've made too many things now that if I start deleting them, then like I'm gonna have a lot of gaps in my city, and I just, yeah, so, which is really annoying because I have so many different types of wooden fences. It's really, really frustrating. So I've had a little bit of time to think about this area because I really want it to look a particular way. Well, this Coney Island's got this really strange atmosphere, especially with these towering government buildings right next to the waterfront. You know, you think that this would be quite an expensive area, and it could be. Don't get me wrong, I don't know anything about this area besides what Google Maps tells me, but it looks like it's quite old, a lot of government buildings, so I can't imagine it'd be a very wealthy looking place. But like this stretch looks so bizarre with these towering government buildings that, yeah, I just really wanted to kind of create that in my city. So trying to get that feeling with these buildings and just clipping those buildings, and they work really well when you clip them up. Yeah, and I think since after I finish this entire area, I think I've gotten pretty good at actually making, you know, these government buildings. We call it housing commission in Australia. I'm not really sure what the term is anywhere else, but yeah, like we've got, like where I live in Redfern in Sydney, I've actually got some close by to my place, and maybe that's why I'm so like excited about it. I mean, I went to Russia about a year ago, and it was such a fascinating country. I loved it. Probably one of the best countries I've been to, and something that I've really loved about it is these sort of Soviet-esque buildings. I find them really interesting, and you know, just traveling around Moscow and St. Petersburg, you know, like everyone's taking photos of all these beautiful churches, but I was actually more interested in these sort of buildings. I don't know why. It's strange the things that you're into, but I'm definitely into this sort of style. So yeah, just sort of playing with some different angles, and I think these buildings, I don't think they're clipped. Or maybe they are, I was talking, so I missed what I did. This build's not old, but it's probably about a week and a half old, so I am kind of trying to remember what I did. It's really great using this Move It tool as well, because those buildings actually are still registered to a building close by or are still registered to a road nearby, so they're not going to start flashing that they're not connected to a road, which is really great. So these buildings I actually used in my old build in this area, and I actually really loved it. You know, they're so iconic that you can see them from pretty much anywhere in the city. So I really wanted to use them again, and pretty much only use them in this area to make them quite unique and, you know, different to anything else that's around in this city. So I wanted them to be in a really great spot, so I've put them in the entrance to this whole area, this whole neighborhood, and I've tried to make them on like a bit of a ledge, so they're actually quite higher up than anything else. So a bit of a rule of thumb for me is I go with quite a, like you're probably looking at them, I do go crazy detail, but I try to go hardcore detail with the areas that probably get the most attention. The places that are, center of town, or, places that I'm going to do lots of cinematics at. And then other parts of town, like suburbs or forests, something like that, just barely any detail. Just to sort of save on the frame rate. Like, my frame rate's not fantastic, and I'm always trying to find ways of improving it. But I think what a really good thing that I've discovered with this game is that my frame rate, loses speed when I look at really high detailed areas, but it doesn't slow down my entire game. So what I'm trying to say with that is I think I can build this entire city with as much detail as I'm going and still maintains the amount of frame rate as I'm getting at the moment, which is a great frame rate. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm kind of going off shit, is this going to actually totally crap out when I build a massive city? Am I actually going to finish it? But I have high confidence that it's going to be fine. It's going to manage it. And I'm running all this on high graphics. I've got high detail, I've got sharp textures, and I've got I never can pronounce it. It's not that hard to pronounce, but I can never say it, but the I don't know how to say it. But I've got something, and it's whatever it is, it's turned to 300. I'll see if you guys can comment down below and tell me what I'm trying to say. Or maybe I've just put it up on the screen. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. This area here, I find it a really interesting area, and especially an interesting area in Coney Island. It's just here, it's kind of like this boardwalk is so important along the theme park and along the beach, but then as it kind of creeps off into the distance, it loses its brilliance. So I was trying to create that, making it kind of peter off into a little bit of nothing. Down here, I was trying to just experiment with this sort of area. It was once industrial, and I've sort of changed it up. I felt like I wanted a little bit of industrial in this sort of spot, but I didn't want to go hardcore industrial. Yeah, so just this area actually in Coney Island has a lot of car parks. So I do go car park crazy, but I think it works. And they're always these massive car parks, because I guess they've got to house all these cars that belong to these big buildings, these big government apartments. So I was kind of going with that sort of thing. Different style of apartment block here, but yeah, didn't want to. So I'm actually not running too many assets. So I use, now that I've got this mover tool, I can actually clip a lot of different buildings and make them unique, rather than having to download every unique building. So I think this particular building, on the one, the orange and white, I think that was part of a 4-piece set. And it's got the left side and the middle, and then the right side, and then you got the corner, and you've got these different sides to it. But all you need is the one piece, and then you can just splice it up with other parts of the building, and then it just it's unique. So you don't have to download every little thing, which is really cool. I'm also trying not to use so many of the prop car parks, because I did that for one area, and then because this is an 80s city, I don't have very many 80s car props that I can just plop down. But instead, if I use these these actual car parks, then people can actually just park in these spots, and I don't have to worry about that. So that was something that I kind of discovered only a week ago. So down here, I do something kind of different that I haven't really done before, but I put down this, because there's quite a lot of concrete in this Coney Island area, and I really wanted to get that sort of a vibe going in this sort of area too. But there's also a lot of trees, so I'm kind of trying to find a happy medium. And so I put down this pathway along the side of the roads just to kind of put a lot of concrete down there. I think it works really well, and something I'm actually going to do in a lot of other parts of the city. But yeah, I think that's about it. I might just skedaddle and join you back up in the live play. And I did want to talk about something, but I actually can't remember what that was. So hopefully I remember in the next couple of minutes, and I can talk about it in the live play. But anyway, enjoy the rest, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. See ya. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Yeah, trying to make my time lapses a little bit shorter than usual, but it's pretty hard to shave off a bit of time when so much is built. But anyway, I'm really happy with how this build turned out. I think it's a big improvement from what was previously here, and the amount of detail is just way better, and I can totally move on from this session. Well, this section. Maybe a little bit of, got to fix up the amusement park a little bit more, but besides that, I think it's pretty good. So let's have a little look at what we built, and I might start where we first started off. Alright, here we go. Now, here is the train station that we're stuck in, and I was going for that Coney Island train station feel. It's a double layer one at Coney Island, so I just kind of did this style, which is a little bit different, but I think it fits in pretty nicely. I think this motel fits in so nicely. I think it's a great shape for this area, especially looking at different angles. I think it looks really great with a theme park behind it, and just this car park fits in perfectly. I love these big old vacant lots, especially with barely any cars parking in them. I think that works really well. It reminds me of it was built for lots of people, but lots of people that just aren't here. So I have actually modified around here off camera quite a lot. Didn't really need to be on camera, so I'll show you a bit more of that in the cinematics. But what I've kind of done, I've just sort of put in these buildings here, kind of like shop fronts slash office buildings. And yeah, I think they turned out really nice, especially with this Motel 1 kind of plopped behind here. And I've put in this sort of Pizza Hut sort of multiple shop area here. And this sort of style really fits in nicely with this area. Like I said before, I think concrete cement is always textured and always needs a bit of color, and it can't just be totally grey. I've put in these just like some, generic government houses here. I'm trying to think about what else I didn't put into the time lapse. Oh yeah, this sort of over here. Down here, I've got this mud flat. It's kind of like a bit of an inlet. Now this area looks just so. Let's try and get it to a position where it's covering up blank areas. But over here, it's kind of like just an entrance to the river here. So I really was happy with how this has turned out, and just looking from up in this position, I think it just looks great. You have this wall here that's got this lighthouse. So now that we've fixed up this whole area, there are a couple of little bits and pieces that I need to fix up in the theme park, and even kind of finish off, because I did leave it a tad unfinished. But before I do that, I think I might just give you a little tour, because it's something that I haven't really done yet. So yeah, let's have a little look. The whole idea with this theme park is that it's a sort of place where you walk in, you can wander around and just buy fairy floss or just go for a walk down on the boardwalk, but doesn't cost any money. If you want to ride a ride, then you have to kind of buy a ticket or something like that. So it's kind of like one of those sort of amusement parks. So there's multiple entries, and it's, kind of intersected with these roads, kind of strung together, almost like it was maybe once just this size, and then as it's grown bigger and become more popular, it's kind of creeped out into these sort of areas here. But the whole intention for this theme park was to create kind of like a strange, unpleasant sort of an atmosphere. I don't want it to be like a fantastic amusement park. I kind of want it to be really drab and like a bit creepy and spooky. And that's the sort of vibe I was going for. So let's just have a start at this roller coaster over here. What I was going for the roller coaster was something like 1920s built, poorly maintained, and not very popular. So it's kind of over here near the parking lot and surrounded by this really awful fence, grass, little bits of grass kind of poking out. My Ferris was burnt down, but around here I was kind of going for, this was meant to be like a flat ride with a kind of like a coaster kind of creeping along there. Down here I've got these sort of, I guess they're like food stalls, mixed in a couple of different props to kind of create that. These props are, I think they're like fruit markets or something like that, but they do the trick. got some flat rides here. I was kind of going for this. It's a real mix of. So let's just have a look. Let's just have a little go. Maybe it's got around. Yeah, there it is. It's a roundabout. There it is there. So I've plopped that down there. I've dragged him over here, and then I've actually used some decal tiles just to kind of put around here, make it a little bit of a different color. I've also got these steel beams that are kind of poking through, and I've used these cuts here. But I've actually was using a different style of cuts at this one, and it was really high in the triangle, so it was a really high weight, and I just couldn't justify it. So I got rid of it, got rid of the cut, and figured I'll just replace it back with these ones. So you do have to kind of use your imagination a bit when placing down and trying to make this theme park. I mean, it's definitely like when you come in really close and you can sort of see what the sort of bits and pieces that I'm using. It's especially down here, golf carts, and I think this was part of it's like a crusher or something for cars or something like that. So yeah, you do have to kind of use your imagination, especially over here. I've just clipped a couple of, and when I sort of found them, I was working with them quite a lot. These are, I think they're called lifts. It might not be a lift, it might be like a drill or something, but using some of these construction vehicles, you can actually create some pretty realistic looking rides. So I guess in my mind, this is like a slingshot ride here. Over here, I've got like I guess like one of those arms that kind of raise up in the air, and they've got these carts down here. And I've got these props that are, I guess it's called the octopus. And over here is I think you can see what this is, but I think it works. I think it works pretty well. I feel like this is one of those rides that like a free fall drop ride, something like that, but I think in reality it's a lift. Now down here, this is the go-karts, and I did have these really great props that were tires, but they weighed a lot. So I had to unsubscribe from them, which was really annoying because I thought they looked really good. But I mean, like, it's not too bad without them. But I will kind of just replace them for the meantime, just with some sort of barrel. I think considering how smooth my game runs, considering the amount of detail and assets I actually have, and the amount of work that's into this city, I think it runs pretty smoothly. And I think that's how I manage all my mods and assets. This is such a great roller coaster here. It's actually a prop, and I really love the way it looks just looking out onto the city over here. I think it works great, especially at sunset. Definitely will include some sunset video of that towards the end. Oh, of course, it's called a 3D cinema. There she is. Alright, let's see how this fits in. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. If you haven't played Roller Coaster Tycoon, like the classic ones, this is an asset from that. And I do need to replace my poor Ferris wheel that burnt down. Yeah, that's better. Now it's looking a little bit, yeah, that's better. This area is looking really great, but it actually is lacking a few more trees. So I'm actually gonna find a planter and just pop them down. I'm actually just gonna plop down a couple of just random areas of trees. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. So this area just down here is actually, I just kind of left it bare, not on purpose, just because I got lazy and just kind of finished it up. But I do think something needs to go here, and I feel like maybe a shop of some sort. These aren't technically shops. I've just saved them as residential, just for it was a bit easier for me to do that way. I might put that down there. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to all my 1,000 plus subscribers. That happened so quickly, I really didn't expect it, had nothing planned, and I do want to celebrate my YouTube milestones, so might have to do something for 2020. I don't know, if you guys are interested, let me know. Hit that like button because that helps a great deal, and I'll surprise you with something for 2020. Maybe like a tour around my new pad. I am moving house in a couple of weeks and plan to have a much cooler setup. But anyway, in the meantime, have a good week, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.